As we begin our ANZAC Day ceremony, I would like to ask that all mobile phones are turned off and all earpieces are taken out. Please remove any caps or beanies. I now invite Ty Fuller, Huon College Captain, to give the acknowledgement to country.
I'd like to acknowledge the Darugara people who are the traditional custodians of this land. I would also like to pay my respects to elders past and present of the Darugara Nation, and I extend the respect to other Indigenous people who are present. Now our student leaders will guide you through today's ceremony.
Thank you, Ty. Today our ceremony will be led by college captains from each of the schools represented. They are Sinead Lee, Tegan Keane and Chelsea Barton from Wodonga Senior Secondary College, Imogen Anderson and myself from Feltimba, Ty Fuller and Rose Delarue from Huon, and Jessica Hupfield and Peter Giasumi from Flying Fruit Fly Circus School. I'd like to welcome our special guests, retired Colonel Duncan Polick and Sergeant Peter Van Dinther of the Australian Army, to our ceremony today. A special thank you to our trumpet player, Ross Draper, for his continued support to our college ceremonies. We acknowledge our college principal, Vern Hilditch, who is an apology for today's ceremony. We welcome our principals, Marie Kribis and Cassandra Walters, our serving and ex-serving members of the ADF who are here today. Our college parents, staff and students to our ANZAC Day commemorative service for 2019.
This ceremony is a solemn occasion where we are given the opportunity to reflect on and respect the sacrifices of those who have served, suffered, and died in war. Given the nature of this ceremony, please not applaud or speak at any stage. Much of the last 4 years has been spent reflecting on what was happening 100 years ago in the war. 1919 was significant as it was the beginning of the return of soldiers and support crew back home. Many were wounded physically, and many were never to be the same again. Today we will focus on the return and recovery of those who served. Today we join as 4 schools to commemorate as one college community. We recognise the great legacy of the ANZACs and the sacrifices they made for their families and for the future of Australia.
I would now ask for the catapult party to mount. Our cadets are led by Christopher Watson. Huon Captain Rose Delaware and Feltimba Captain Imogen Anderson will now give the ANZAC Requiem.
This is the ANZAC Requiem. A requiem is a token of remembrance. On the morning of April 25th, 1915, Australian and New Zealand troops landed under fire on Gallipoli. It was then, and in the battles which followed, that the ANZAC tradition was formed. The elements of that tradition have shaped our nation and offered a lasting example to many generations of Australians. On this day, above all days, we remember all those who served our nation in times of war. We remember with pride their courage, their compassion, and their comradeship. We remember what they accomplished for Australia and indeed for the freedom of mankind. Each year we pay homage not only to those original ANZACs, but to all who died or were disabled in their service to this country. They enrich our nation's history.
We remember those who fell amidst the valleys and ridges of Gallipoli, on the terraced hills of Palestine, in France and Belgium, on the sands of the North African desert, amidst the mountains and olive groves of Greece, Crete, and Syria, in the skies over Europe, in Singapore, in the jungles of Malaysia, Indonesia, Papua New Guinea, and the Pacific Islands, in Korea and Vietnam, in later conflicts and in peacekeeping, in the skies and seas, in many parts of the world, and on our own soil and in our sea lanes. We remember those who suffered as prisoners of war and those who died in captivity. We remember staunch friends and allies, especially those who fought alongside us on the first day on Gallipoli in 1915. We honour the memory of those Australians who have fallen in battle. We also share the sorrow of those who have mourned them, and of all who have been the victims of armed conflict. Our servicemen and women have left us a splendid heritage. May we and our successors prove worthy of their sacrifice. I now invite Senior College Captain Chelsea Barton to give a reading.
The loss of life and impact the war had on all countries involved was so huge that it became known as the Great War. Around 40 million people were wounded or killed in World War I. The grief and sorrow that followed this tragedy was tremendous, as families tried to get along in life without their loved ones. 16 years after the war, General Mustafa Kemal Ataturk made a speech. He was the first leader of the Republic of Turkey, and known to be a very caring man who saw the value on each individual life. He was affectionately known as the Father of the Turks. His speech has become famous and now stands on a stone plaque above the Gallipoli Peninsula as a constant reminder of the blood that was shed. Among all the heartache, he chose to never forget those who died, no matter what country they came from. I will share it with you today. It reads, "Those heroes who shed their blood and lost their lives, you are now lying in the soil of a friendly country. Therefore, rest in peace. There is no difference between the Johnnies and Mehmets to us where they lie, side by side here in this country of ours. You, the mothers who sent their sons from faraway countries, wipe away your tears. Your sons are now lying in our bosom and are in peace. After having lost their lives on this land, they have become our sons as well." Ataturk, 1934.
Many famous songs were written during World War I, singing brightened people's spirits and brought hope to many. Vance Joy wrote this song after being away from his home and family for a long time while being on tour. It is about the joys and of the fears of what may have changed while he'd been away. Zach Spalding will perform Coming Home today in acknowledgement of the hope held by many soldiers to make it home alive after their service. Many waited up to 200 days before they would start their long journey home. During this song, we can also think of those at home who longed for their loved ones to return.
Under the surface, you don't know what you'll find until it's your time. No second chances, but all we can do is try. I made up my mind. I can't see you, but I hear your call. Baby, hold on now. We're going home. If we make it or we don't, we won't be alone. When I see your light shine, I know I'm home. If you're waiting all your life, you won't ever go. When I see your light shine, I know I'm home. When I see your light shine, oh, I know I'm home. When I see your light shine. Some things are simple, so hard to ignore, they say. The truth is like that. When we're getting colder, so far from the shore. I say, the world is like that. I can't see you, but I hear your call. Baby, hold on now. We're going home, but if we make it or we don't, you won't be alone. When I see your light shine, I know I'm home. If you're waiting all your life, you won't ever go. When I see your light shine, I know I'm home. When I see your light shine, oh, I know I'm home. When I see your light shine, there's a place that I wanna run with you. Darling, there's a place that I wanna run with you. We're going home. If we make it or we don't, you won't be alone. When I see your light shine, oh, I know I'm home. If you're waiting all your life, you won't ever go. When I see your light shine, I know I'm home. When I see your light shine, oh, I know I'm home. Oh, I know. When I see your light shine.
Thank you for that moving performance. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, retired Colonel Duncan Polick of the Australian Army, who will give the address. We welcome Colonel Polick to the stage.
Good morning, distinguished guests, students, teachers, families, and visitors from home and overseas. I'm especially thankful for the Dudawara people here today and pay my respects to elders past and present and thank them for allowing to hold us this ceremony here. I also acknowledge the servicemen and women here today, past and present, and their families, and thank them for their service from a grateful nation. Before I start and we talk about the ANZAC spirit, which I believe, in the words of Charles Bean, is here today in that it is one of enterprise, resourcefulness, fidelity, mateship, and endurance that hates defeat. I see that here today in each and every one of you, student, friends, family, and staff. As part of that reflection now, I'd ask that you can go back in time and imagine you are now a service person. Your teammates are those sitting right next to you. Have a look at them. They might look different once we get you into the army. We shave that head of yours and we start serving together, sharing what are struggles, good times, bad times, and preparing for what could be a dangerous operations. Imagine now having to share sweeping, cleaning, washing dishes, and cleaning toilets. We hardly do this at home. Imagining having to do this under pressure. All these delights without social media. How do you feel about returning home? Not too dissimilar to what the ANZACs felt, I imagine. Now the good news, and the good news is tongue-in-cheek. You and your team is deploying overseas. We think that you'll be away for a year. You'll have limited contact home. Your food will be what we can get, mainly out of cans, mainly what comes out of the cheapest cannery in the region, but otherwise it'll keep you going, generally. No sleep-ins, a sleep-in 0530. You get to dig plenty of holes, good if you like digging holes, not so good if you don't like digging holes. You can see, as a little bit of comfort, something that looks like hill on hill, except that it's about 4,000 metres taller and has snow on it. But somehow that snow manages to melt and the mud gets into your boots, into your food, into your sleeping bag, and yet it's dusty at the same time. Worst of all, that dust gets on your weapon. Why am I thinking about dust on a weapon? What sort of person have I become? With all these images in mind, what about the ANZACs returning home? How would you feel? Australian troops didn't return home to great victory parades at the First World War due to a flu epidemic. It was even worse if you're an Indigenous soldier, where there was no recognition for your service from the nation for which now you had to live in. Although there were welcome home parades after the Second World War, these were not replicated in the middle regions around Korea, Indonesia, Malaya, Vietnam and Iraq conflicts. Recent veterans, as myself and some of the soldiers standing here, were welcomed home following conflicts in Somalia, Kuwait, Iraq, East Timor and Afghanistan. When I asked my soldiers about coming home and whether they wanted a return parade, generally not. They weren't that interested. They went through being in denial, such as this will never happen, to being a resistor, you can't make me do this, and finally a participant, why is this happening, and finally, actually it's not too bad once we're there. Much like your school journey on a day-to-day basis, I imagine. However, after being welcomed home, I realised how thankful I was to the Australian people, and you are the Australian people sitting here before me. Thank you. Coming home was not just arriving home, it was being home, being recognised by people, you people, and participating in ceremonies such as this. It's a big thing for soldiers, sailors, airmen and women for you to participate in ceremonies such as this. So I ask that while you participate in ANZAC Day and enjoy ANZAC Day however you might do it, you remember all veterans, men and women, who are in some cases the same age as you when they went away to war, and some of those did not return home. Some of them came home missing arms and legs, and some had mental health injuries that would never quite heal, and these injuries were carried by their friends and families. I commend you then on how to live, to take encouragement by the spirit of ANZAC, to be the best that you can be while your lives are in front of you, to remember that regardless of who you are or when you came to Australia, you are of value to us, and our community is better having you as an individual and you as a member of our team in it. Have a great ANZAC Day.
Thank you for that informative and engaging address. I now invite Jessica Hupfield and Peter Giasumi from the Flying Fruit Fly Circus School to read the poem, The Pledge of Remembrance.
This is a pledge of remembrance that was written by Rupert McCall, an Australian man who wanted to encourage young people to live the best life they can because of the early sacrifices made by our troops and their families. Soldiers, hear this pledge. Your flag flies in the sun, and now we take a minute to remember what you've done. When you went away to battle, you were proud as proud can be, and you did it for your country. Yes, you flew the flag for me.
Now we live our life with freedom, when we work and when we play. For that my heart says thank you on this very special day. And as we go, we take the words that sing Australia's song. I am young and I am worthy. I am brave and I am strong. In the face of any challenge, I will strive to rise above. I deserve this opportunity to live, to learn, to love. I can truly make a difference. My path is up to me. And this is my commitment to be the best that I can be.
Thank you, Peter and Jessica. If you are seated, please stand if you are able. Thank you. Flowers have traditionally been laid on the graves or memorials of the dead, and as a school, we are now going to lay wreaths at the base of the flagpole. I will announce the name of each college as they lay the wreath for their school. Fruit Fly Circus School, Finn Neal and Jasmine Armstrong. Middle Years College, Huon Campus, Paul Nichols and Kiara Brennan. Middle Years College, Feltimber Campus, Steph Van Dinther and Jacinta Shaw. Wodonga Senior Secondary College, Madeline and Emily Jennings. Sergeant Peter Van Dinther is about to read the ode. You can repeat the last line, we will remember them. This shall be followed by the last post, 1 minute of silence, and then the rouse will be played. Please do not speak or make any noise during the silence. This will then be followed by the singing of the Australian National Anthem.
They shall not grow old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them, lest we forget.
Please join our choir in singing the Australian National Anthem. Thank you to our college students who serve as cadets with the Navy, Air Force and Army cadet groups. Thank you to the Catapult Party. They will now leave the ceremony.
Inward. Turn. Party. Quick. March. Left, right, left, right, left, right, left.
Please be seated. Thank you for your attention today. There are local ANZAC ceremonies tomorrow and we encourage you to attend one. There is a dawn ceremony at High Street, Wodonga at 5:45am or the 11am march. ANZAC pins will be on sale today at your school. Special thanks to our guests Colonel Duncan Pollock, Ross Draper and Sergeant Peter Van Dinther for attending today. We also thank college students and staff and our college parents who have attended today's ceremony. Could all of the students and guests who participated in the commemorative service please stay behind for photos.